What's up, my fellow harmonic traders? Welcome back to Track the Harmonic, your go-to destination for all things harmonic technical analysis. I'm your host, Lord MC. In today's video, we're diving deep into harmonic technical analysis and gearing up for a big week of economic data release and some key events that could shape the markets. Here's what's on the radar next week. First up, we have the ISM Manufacturing and Services PMI. This gives us a snapshot of economic activity in both the production and service sectors. Essentially, this is how businesses are feeling and performing. We also have the JOLTS job openings. This is the job openings and labor turnover survey. This provides us insights into the health of the labor market, which shows us how many jobs are available and how workers are moving around. We also have Powell's speech. This is always a market mover. We know Federal Chair Jerome Powell will always be sharing his insights and potentially hint at future interest rate decisions. So it's going to be very important to see what he says. We also do have the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate. So this is a gold standard for tracking job growth and the overall labor market health. So it's going to be very important to see what that data shows. We also have trend of the week, the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Preliminary. This is just a key indicator of how confident consumers are feeling about the economy. So if you like this type of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay ahead of the curve. I also want to preface by saying I am not a financial advisor. None of the things I say in my videos or anywhere else is ever financial advice. So question everything, do your own research, and come out with your conclusions. Having said that, let's jump right into those charts. Jumping over to the SPY here. So the SPY, no current harmonic pattern forming on the daily. I know we have this bearish ABCD pattern, but obviously this went above hop, so it's invalidating this pattern. And you also had this bullish black swan, which called PT3, and it made a higher high, a new all-time high on Friday. It did go as high as 603.35 before closing the day at 602.55. So what can we expect here harmonically in the daily? We don't have any harmonic targets or harmonic patterns, I should say, but we do have some on the larger time frames, and I'll go over that in just a bit. Something I want to note here is that SPY is just creating higher highs and higher lows. So I bring up my drawings here. So what can we expect here just by drawing some fib retracement here? The next level I would be looking at here to the upside, based on the most recent swing high, which was right here back in November, to the most recent swing low. You could just take a fib retracement here, simple fib retracement, and the next target I'd be looking for more upside, which got very close on Friday. Like I said, it went as high as 603.35, and the 1272 is calling for 604.61, and the 1618 is calling for 610.25. Above that, then you have the 2618, which is calling 626. So quickly jump over to the 3-day here really quick. As you can tell, we do have this bearish deep crab on the 3-day. As you can tell, it does not want to go for that type 1 reaction just yet. And in fact, it actually wants to go to complete the return to hop here at 618.44. So we did cross the HSI midline on the 3-day. Obviously, the 3-day is going to take some time to play out, but that target is calling for 618.44 as the next target. I think, in my opinion, if it does go to these overbought conditions on the HSI, you push way above hop at 618.44. And if we jump over here to the monthly really quick, we do have a bearish deep crab as well. As you can tell, at the end of the month for November, we did push pretty high there for almost 6% move for the month on a very strong candle close here. So hop there is calling it the same target as the 3-day at 618.44. The HSI is kind of overreaching the overbought conditions. The RSI is well above the 70 RSI, so it is overbought. So we want to see if this is going to continue into next week. We obviously have a lot of data that's going to come out, so we could consolidate until that data comes out. In the event that we do have some rejection up here, the next level I'll be looking at would be a retest of PT3, roughly around 599 to 600. Below that, then you come back down all the way back down to hop there at 584 to see if it holds and maybe comes back down to test some of these levels. Right now, SPY does look strong here with solid harmonic buying here, right? You had some buying pressure here after you hit this lower hop. You had a double bottom there, and then you continued now to push above for a higher high. On the weekly, you did have this hammer candle on the weekly, so we'll see if this is actually going to be a reversal. It's obviously off low volume, so you have to note that we did have a short week. Thursday was closed, and on Friday we had a half day. So we're going to see if there's more continuation to the upside. If the data is bullish, in my opinion, I do think SPY continues to go higher towards that 618 target. If you do have some resistance or bearish data, I believe we can get a little retracement just back down to create maybe that higher low. So that higher low, if you just draw a quick trend line here, go over just down here. So the higher low, you could definitely come back down to test the 21 EMA around 591, maybe get some liquidity there, and then continue for a higher high. So right now there's more upside in my opinion for SPY than downside. The HSI here is hovering kind of like just slightly below the overbought conditions and just flatlining. So we could consolidate until data comes out and see what that says. So not much else we can say to the downside here. The next level, if it does come down below 584, if data is bearish, you have the gap to fill towards ABC there at 575.88, and you have that HSI dot retest line. In my opinion, if we ever do get down here at these levels here around 574, 575, you could look to be bearish in the market for the SPY. So definitely keep a close eye on SPY. Jumping over to the triple Qs here. So the triple Qs has this bearish white swan pattern on the daily, currently holding above OPR. You did go as high as 510.34 on Friday, ultimately closing at 509.74. Similar to the SPY here, the triple Qs is on its way to making potentially that higher high, just like SPY already did. Actually, SPY already made an all-time high and a higher high, where the Qs has yet to make a new all-time high and that higher high, but it looks like it's on its way. So what can we expect here harmonically for the triple Qs? Something that's I'd be looking at very closely here to see if this is actually going to create a higher high or a double top here, right? So in harmonics, we know that an M formation is potentially forming here. You could just make a top here around the previous all-time high, which is around 515, or you could push higher, right? This could be a potential shark or deep crab down the line, extension to point D, and then you may be coming down for a rejection to create, that point C higher high, and then the retracement for a point D lower leg, which would ultimately be a bullish reversal back up. So you could make that higher high and then come back for that higher low, maybe back to retrace some of these levels. So what can we expect here harmonically for targets here? The next level, like I said, I would be looking to test 515 previous all-time high, 515.58. If you get rejected around here, the next level I'd be looking at would be 505, and then 503.52, roughly where the 21 EMH. Similar to the SPY here, you also are looking to create higher highs and higher lows. So the higher low would be come down here to around 503, 502 to find support there, and it starts to push up with volume. You could see maybe on its way to test the previous all-time high and ultimately create that higher high. On the weekly, we do have this bearish ABCD pattern. On the weekly, you do have hop at 529.73. The HSI is above the midline, starting to curl up again. So we did close on the week with this gravestone doji. Obviously low volume week because of the holidays, so we'll definitely see if it's going to hold above ABCD there. So on the weekly, losing ABCD at 498.04. The next level I'd be looking at would be the retest of 485.32. So right now it just looks to me like it's probably going to consolidate up here until that data comes out to see if it's actually going to make that test for the previous all-time high and then ultimately make a higher high. Like I said, if on the daily you do lose 503.52, then I'd be looking for targets to the downside at CD at 501.35, and then the 50 SMA they're just roughly at PT1 at 495.12, and then PT2 at 491.28. My opinion, you get very bearish here. There is a gap to fill here to the downside on the triple Qs right above PT2, but if you do come down here to where that HSI dot retest line is around 491, 490, you can get bearish here for a retracement all the way down to PT3 at 474.98 down the line. Obviously, we're still not there yet, but that would be the level I would be looking at if it gets very bearish in the markets. Ultimately, we have to respect seasonality. Usually, at the end of the year, we do have a Santa rally. So we'll see if there's a strong continuation again into also the president's inauguration. So we'll see if more continuation to the upside for the triple Qs. So definitely keep a close eye on the triple Qs. Jumping over to the Dow Jones here. So the Dow Jones, similar to what SPY's chart looks like, but in my opinion, the Dow Jones shows a lot more strength in both the indices here, the triple Qs and SPY. As you can tell, the volume has been going crazy here, an increase in volume, and really no selling coming in. And in fact, on Friday, you actually pushed higher with volume more than you did so on Wednesday, where it was a full day. So it looks to me that Dow Jones is very strong here for more continuation to the upside. We can see that it created a new all-time high. It went as high as 451.28 on Friday and created that higher high. You did validate that HSI arrow for that reversal, right? You did have one back in November where you did retrace just slightly, but ultimately right now there's no retracement just yet on the triple Qs. As I bring up my drawings here, what can we expect? I did have a level here at 442.72. Should it get there, the next level would be looking to the downside would be targets from the white swan from 435 all the way down to PT2 there, where there is a gap to fill. if there is more continuation here for the Dow Jones here, the next level I'd be looking at would be, obviously, if you take the most recent swing high to swing low, would be 454.28 here. So 454.28, that would be the 1618, and see if there's more continuation above that. If we do have some resistance here, the next level I'd be looking at, like I said, would be that gap fill, which is around 443.57. If we go over here to the weekly, I wanted to show you guys the ABCD pattern where we clearly broke above hop, and now that HSI dot retest line around 434 is holding as support. So be looking at to cross the more continuation, because we did cross the HSI midline. So if this goes anywhere close to the overbought conditions, expect the Dow Jones to continue pushing way above 454. And if we go over to the monthly here really quick, you can see the strength in the monthly candle on the Dow Jones for the month of November. It pushed up 7.76% on increasing volume. So it's quite significant here for the Dow Jones. Very strong in my opinion here. We'll look to be looking at for retracement. If it shows a sign of retracement, it'll to come down to CMZ's targets. But right now, on the daily here, the RSI is a bit overbought. And you're actually, believe you had a bearish divergence here, but it looks like it's probably going to get invalidated if the RSI makes a higher high. The HSI, it's almost at these, it is at the overbought zone. So I'm looking at to see if maybe you come in for an HSI dot retest line and then fill that. If you do fail that dot retest line, obviously you're looking for the previous close below the HSI arrow here, or even the previous one here back in on the 12th of November, which was around 439 to 444, where you could come down and test that retest line and create a potential reversal back down to test some of these levels. So right now, no indication yet. I definitely pay attention. If we're going to get some bearish momentum to the downside, you want to see it off of high volume, because right now the bearish side, non-existent. Very strong volume to the upside. So definitely keep a close eye out on the Dow Jones. Jumping over to IWM here. So the Russell 2000 has this bearish butterfly on the daily. At the completion of the pattern here, as you could tell, you had an HSI dot and an HSI arrow to the downside, and we're looking to go back down to test that type 1 reaction for that 222.53 target. You had some harmonic selling here, but ultimately we're not able to go all the way down to T1 and hold support above the 21 EMA, where you did a V reversal back up to a type 2 return to hop at 242.04. But as you could tell here, it couldn't hold, and now you are finding resistance at that hop. You did form an HSI dot on Wednesday here, so we'd be looking here to the downside. If there's more continuation to the downside here, or volume to pick up, you want to see that gap close at it left around 239.24, and then ultimately come down to test XA at 237.25. You could see that the HSI is kind of flatlining, but also starting to curl down. So we want to see if this rejection of hop comes in with volume to the downside. If it does, we'd be looking at that gap fill, and then XA at 237.25. Below that, then you'd have BC at 232.67. Losing the 21 EMA is probably the best indicator to see if it's going to actually come back all the way down to T1, where there is a gap fill right around 224.29. T1 is at 223.54. What can we expect here if IWM actually starts to look to get some volume again to the upside? The next level I would be looking at would be PT3 there at 248.36. So this did create an all-time high there at 244.98, but is currently finding resistance. If we go over to the weekly, you can see that this is left on a doji candle, where we do have a bearish bat pattern here calling for hop at 256.13 as the next level to the upside. The HSI has a lot more room to the upside if this continues with strength to the upside. If we go over to the monthly, you can see the strength in the monthly candle here. You are up for the month of November 11%. So to the upside here, we could just draw the previous all-time high here to the most recent swing low. The next level you'd be looking above would be the 1272, which is calling around 266.98. But currently, as you can see, at the 100% retracement, just basically where it was previous all-time high, is currently resistant. So if we even scroll a little bit further back out here, you can see that the Russell 2000 just created a higher low and is now maybe attempting to create that higher high. So that higher high, based on the monthly fair retracement from most recent all-time high to swing low, is calling for that 266 at the 1272, which gives a little bit of confidence to the weekly target at 256 for those higher targets towards 260. So definitely keep a close eye out on the Russell 2000. Jumping over to XLF here. So XLF, the financial sector ETF, went as high as 51.57 on Friday and it closed at 51.34. As you can see that the RSI, HSI, and the AMP RSI are all completely overbought here. And there is some indecision up here towards this $51 range. As you can see, the previous candle close was on Wednesday. That is a gravestone doji. Ultimately, this could be called a tri-star pattern, where a tri-star pattern says that a reversal is incoming. But right now, you don't have confirmation. Friday's volume was relatively low because we had half day. So what I want to see here is XLF create a potential HSI arrow to the downside of high volume. If you can see that, there may be signs of a reversal back down just to test around where the 90 EMA is, right where you had that wick there around $50.76, which is slightly just above the 90 EMA. Below that, then you would come back down to test that HSI dot retest line, which is around 49.89, where the 21 EMA is at, and then below that you have OPR at 49.01. Below that, then you also have that big gap it left here back in early November, where the bank started to run because of positive earnings. So to the downside here, I do have a target at 49.18. Below that, you can start getting bearish to maybe see these gap get filled. If we go over to the weekly here, the weekly, you can see the volume is starting to decrease on the financial sector here. The HSI is almost approaching the overbought condition, so there could be a shot where this actually continues to close just slightly higher. If we go over to the monthly, as you can see that on the month for November, it did close at 10.46%, which is, I think, one of the highest closes of the month for the financial sector in a while, since back in November 2023 you had a 10.94% move to the upside on the monthly. As you can see, the volume was more significant this time around, higher than the previous than last year. So it's interesting here that it also came in for the month of November, right? In 2023 you pushed 10.94%, and then you just basically almost got the same thing but a higher volume for this year. So the financial sector kind of strong, but we'll see if this is signs of a reversal. But right now I do want to see confirmation otherwise. What can we expect to the upside as targets? We could just draw a fib retracement here from basically the gap here. You can see that the 3618 is 52.16, and we could also just take a fib extension from most recent swing high, or swing low, swing high, and back to the retracement here. You can see that it's currently having trouble around the 50. So 618 is calling 51.83. So 618 is what we'll be looking at towards, let's just say, $52 target for a continuation to the upside. So definitely keep a close eye out on XLF. Jumping over to XLE here, the energy sector ETF, you can see it's currently closed on Friday at 95.53, where it's just holding support above this HSI dot retest line here around 94.75. So what can we expect here for the energy sectors ETF? The next level ought to be looking up here. It starts to get some volume to the upside. As you can see, this push down here was on decrease in volume, and the HSI is about to be oversold. So what you're looking at here to the upside would be an HSI arrow reversal to the upside with some high volume to indicate that a reversal is coming back up, just to at least close this FVG here around $96 and maybe even come up here to 97, 93. I do have a line here all the way up to 101.52. And if we go over here to the other time frames, especially the 3-day here, you do have hop there at 98.68 and a previous PT2 target around 98. So that's would be the next level I'd be looking at here for XLE if you get more continuation to the upside. You can see this is also looking like it's creating an upwards channel here. You did create a higher high here back in early April, and then you came down here for the higher low in September, and now you're potentially meeting up for that double top there, 98, 97, and maybe creating that higher high, which could be towards that 101.52. And you do have a previous, I know this is a invalidate, this pattern got invalidated because it didn't go up just yet here, and it's past the 30 bar rule, but hop there is at 108.63. On the monthly here, as you can see, this closed at 7.83% for the month of November, and you could argue here that this is a potential rising wedge, right? So maybe it does go up a little bit higher towards that 101 and then it starts to dump, but you did get that golden cross here on early June, so we'll see if that is actually going to take place. Maybe you do get that push up towards that higher high, and then you get that rising wedge rejection and then ultimately retrace to the downside. So definitely keep a close eye out on XLE. Jumping over to Apple here. So Apple currently has this bearish dragon pattern where it did get rejected at BC there at 230, and it did come down here to test the 219 level here in early November. Also had a bit of resistance here during the later part of November, but ultimately it did go and push higher here towards that OPR at 238.09. It went actually and created a new all-time high on Friday at 237.81. So what can we expect here harmonically for Apple? The level I'm going to be watching out for Apple here is 242.22, anywhere between 242 and 238 where OPR is at. The reason being is I see that the HSI is completely overbought. Same thing with the amplified RSI, and the RSI is approaching the overbought conditions there as well. So if it does come here and create that higher high, we get a bit of rejection here between 238 to 242. I'll be looking for an HSI arrow to the downside with some volume to signal that a reversal is then coming back down to at least test back OPR and maybe come back down to BC around the 886 at 230.75. And that ultimately would just create a higher low, right? You would push up around above 238 to 242, create a higher high, and then come back for a higher low towards 230 again, as that level there tends to be a level of resistance and then sometimes turns into support. So as you can see here, when this HSI dot retest line here was created, you can see that this was resistance, tried to break above, couldn't, and then finally found support, failed, and then ultimately right now this is where it's actually holding above as support. So you could just create a higher high and then come back to see if this is actually support once again around 230. If it does hold, then you come back to create a higher high down the line. If it does fail, then you create that higher low and ultimately maybe to come and gap close here around 217 and change. If we go over here to the weekly, as you could tell here that the weekly also pretty solid harmonic buying here. The HSI did also almost break above that midline, so we're going to see if that breaks above that midline, and if it does go to the overbought conditions above that midline, then you can see Apple go way above 242. So on the month, for the month of November, this is a candle, this is a engulfing candle, previous candle close on October, right? So we'll see if there's more continuation here to the upside here for Apple, because that is a crazy candle close engulfing the previous candle. Last month you had 930 million volume, and then just this recent month for November you had 891. So not it is a miss on volume, but not by much. So we're going to see if that is actually a true engulfing candle, which by definition would mean more continuation to the upside. And based off of seasonality, we know that the month of December, not always, but for the most part, you tend to have a bullish close into the end of the year. So we're going to see if the market gives us that, because if it does, Apple could definitely carry the market with it. So definitely keep a close eye out on Apple. Jumping over to Microsoft here. So Microsoft currently has this bearish bat pattern. One of the few tickers here, one of the few blue chips here that has yet to make an all-time high and is actually struggling here. In my mentioned videos, I've mentioned that it's been struggling between 433, just where that HSI dot retest line and where that CD target is off the bullish dragon pattern. You can see that it's just been struggling around that level. Every time it comes up there, it gets rejected, and it comes back to test the 200 EMA here. The 200 EMA is currently at 413. It has lost it a few times here, but it ultimately always recovers. So we're going to see if Microsoft actually breaks above here. If it does retrace here, you could argue here in this little just formation here, it has a cup and handle. Find support here above T2, I'd be looking at T1 at 426. Ultimately playing that cup and handle, I think you would come back up towards XA there, maybe even CD between 433 and 438 to the upside. If it manages to hold support above that HSI dot retest line where CD is at 433, I'd be looking for the type 2 return hop at 446, and then ultimately maybe down the line making an attempt for the previous all-time high there at 468 down the line into a bullish close in December. But right now it's just consolidating. Microsoft is just consolidating, like I said in this channel here, between 433 and 405. If we go over to the weekly here, you can see things are getting very tight. There's two HSI dot retest line here around 430 and 413. We're just kind of sandwiching in here. The HSI did just cross the midline, as you can see that it was just scrunched up together here, just very tight, and we'll see if this is actually going to finally break out to the upside. For the month of November, you did close bullish at 4.21% compared to previous close at negative 5.57 off of decrease in volume. So you did close above that HSI dot retest line. There is a harmonic here on the monthly calling for 458. We'll see if this is actually continuation to the upside. In the event that this cannot hold up here for Microsoft, and you do find some resistance here, the next level I'd be looking to lose would be T2 at 419.76 and the 200 EMA there at 412.68, ultimately coming back down to 405. Below that, you could come all the way down to test this HSI dot retest line around 397, where you did come and retest it here, and you actually closed below it, ultimately found support, and then you almost hit double bottom here. So that would be the next level I'd be looking at. If you do lose this level, then it can get very bearish for Microsoft. So definitely keep a close eye out on Microsoft. Jumping over to Amazon here. So Amazon currently has this bullish black swan on the daily at the completion of the pattern. You did reverse and you had that HSI arrow. You did go as high as PT1 there. And then ultimately try to close above PT2 at 208.20, but fell short 3 times. You did on Friday go exactly to 208.20, but were not able to close the day above that PT2 target. In the event that you do get some volume, you close above it, the next targets I would be looking at here would be the gap fill here for Amazon. At the left here, that gap gets filled at 210.88. Above that, then you have an attempt to retest the previous all-time high, which is at 215.90, and then breaking above that, I do have this black swan completing all the way to PT3 at 228.35. That could be a very bullish close if the obviously you have Cyber Monday and all the holiday shopping here for Amazon could definitely benefit off that. HSI HSI midline did cross above the midline here, so we're going to see if there's more continuation. If it goes to the overbought conditions, you're looking towards at least a previous attempt at the previous all-time highs. If you do find resistance here around where the gap fill is and PT2, the next level to the downside to be looking at would be 203.45, and then this line here at 201.20. Below that, you'd lose a 21 EMA and you come down for the type 2 return to CD there at 195, OPR where there is a gap fill around 190, and then ultimately at 188.65 would be very bearish where there is an HSI dot retest line. So obviously we're still far away from that. On the monthly close for Amazon, you did go as high as 11%, and on the monthly here, you do have a PT3 target, guys. You have a PT3 target off the black swan, which is calling 254.92. You did cross the HSI midline on the month of November. So if there's more continuation, you could see Amazon to close extremely high for the month of December. So definitely keep a close eye out on Amazon. Jumping over to Tesla here. So Tesla on the daily, no current harmonic pattern. On Friday, you did close above that HSI dot retest line here, as you can see, which is around 343, and you close at 345.16 on Friday. So the next level to the upside here, just looking to retrace up to the 361.93, which is that high there. If you do fail here, the next level I'd be looking, I would just here to fill that gap. It hasn't closed here around 324.68. I want to go over to the macro here, 2-day chart. You do have a bearish harmonic here where hop, you got rejected here off of that that shooting star, right? You got rejected a hop, you quickly rejected 361 and you came down. So right now you are trying to cover hold above ABCD there at 336.28 and hold above as support. If you do, your next level I'd be looking at would be to finally break above 361.95. If we go over 3-day, you also have another harmonic pattern. This is a bearish Gartley, where you can see that this is a hammer candle. You can call this a hanging man, but this is a hammer candle on an uptrend here potentially. Could mean continuation. Obviously, this is on the 3-day candle close, so we want to see at least a retest of XA and close above XA at 347.58, then clear that 361, and then maybe down the line you can see hop here, which is calling for 428.88. Off the weekly, different picture though. You do have what's called a hanging man here, so we'll see if this is a reversal candle or not. We know by definition a hanging man is signs on an uptrend, at least a reversal come back down. So for the month of November, very bullish close. Tesla had a 38.15% close for the month of November. Pretty close, not that far away from testing its previous all-time highs here, which is around 414.50, so 20% more, and you see Tesla create or attempt to retest a previous all-time high. So things targets to the downside, like I said, the next level I'd be looking at to lose at 343 level, come down and test the 13 EMA here around 331. lose that level there, you come and close that gap fill to 21 EMAs, where you can get kind of bearish here for Tesla at 317. You can come back down below 300 to test 283. Obviously there is some gaps to fill to the downside over here, but we're a bit far away here, and the HSI is signaling that at least it wants to come towards that midline. So definitely keep a close eye out on Tesla. Jumping over to Google here. So Google currently has this bearish butterfly on the daily, and similar to Microsoft, Google is still struggling here to test its previous all-time high. So something is interesting that's going on with Google here. There's a potential inverse cup and handle here, so it is bearish here. You are finding a bit of resistance here at T1, just slightly where the HSI dot retest line here is around 170. So 170 is a level to watch out for Google. In the event that you break above here, in the next level I'd be looking at to be the type 2 return to hop towards 185. As you can see that the EMAs here, the 9, the 13, and 21 are all bunching up together here with that HSI dot retest line. So there is some resistance here. The EMAs right now, it looks like they are bunching up together for the next move up or down, depending on what it is. We'll be seeing some major targets to the upside here for Google, or some major rejection here. If we do fail T1 here, the next level I'd be looking at would be 166, where the HSI dot retest line is right here. Then you have the 200 SMA at 164, the 200 EMA at 162, and then you completely close that T2 target at 160 for that type 1 reaction. Below that, then you see targets to the downside. There is a gap to fill all the way down here for Google towards 150, 150. So obviously not there yet, but what's interesting here is that how close and tight you are between this HSI dot retest line at 170 and 166. So you can get bearish if you lose 166, and in my opinion you could get bullish if you break above 170. Right now there is some harmonic buying here. There is some buying pressure, but ultimately any type of buying pressure that has come up here has always come down here quite significantly. You had here rejection at XA, you came down here all the way down to the HSI dot retest line at 167, tried to break up, but ultimately you had increase in volume here, and then the most major selling here that you did get with high volume. So we're going to see that things are starting to slow down just a bit. The HSI is approaching that midline, so that midline could be around that 170. So like I said, a break above that 170 can get bullish, and a break below 166 you can get bearish. On the weekly, you do have this harmonic pattern here. I believe this is an ABCD pattern where you're currently above OPR from the bearish white swan. The ABCD target there is calling at 184, and then hop at 197. You did lose a 21 you did close above the 21 EMA and the 9 EMA on a short week, so we'll see if there's continuation. In the event that does fail here, I'd be looking for the 50 EMA as a level of support, which is around 159. Below that, then you have a larger HSI dot retest line at 149.53. So far, the the 50 EMA SMA has held as a level of support for Google. So you could come back down to around 159, 160, and then find support, and then maybe create that higher high down the line. So definitely keep a close eye out on Google. Jumping over to Meta here. So Meta currently has this bearish dragon on the daily. It is finding a bit of resistance here towards that HSI dot retest line here around 580. Right now the volume has been decreasing. The HSI did cross the midline and is approaching what looks like the overbought conditions, and if it does go around the overbought conditions, I would expect that to be towards that 594, maybe even BC at 598. As you could tell, every time it gets up there, it kind of finds some resistance where point D was generated. You came back all the way down to around 554. You tried another attempt, and you came back down to CD at 1.272 of the pattern at 550, where so far is holding support. In the event that you come down, you're not able to break above here, and you do fail the 50 EMA there around 565. The major level I'd be looking at if you're trying to play Meta to the downside would be to lose 550.73. If this loses this level here, the next levels I'd be looking obviously to be the completion of the type 1 reaction, where there is a gap fill at 544, another gap fill where the 200 SMA is at 514, and then obviously 495.60. But right now, obviously, we're not there yet, but major key level to the downside, we can get bearish, extremely bearish if you lose at 550.73. If you break above this HSI dot retest line around 579, 580, the next level I'd be looking at would be 593, 594, BC at 598, and then the previous all-time highs would be at 602, and then a new all-time high would generate at 614.22. If we go over to the weekly here, you can see that it is finding resistance at OPR again, and the HSI is starting to curl up, maybe to test that midline, which could be again where OPR is, or maybe around 586 to 590. On the monthly, you have a perfect doji candle here for the month of November. You did push up 1.19%, and you do have the previous candle close on October was also, you could argue this as a shooting star. So right now you're having maybe signals of a top here potentially, but we'll see what Meta has to say about that, especially if it gets bullish towards the end of the month here, and if data is bullish. So definitely keep a close eye out on Meta. Jumping over to Netflix here. So Netflix on the daily, no current harmonic pattern. You did close on Friday at 886.81, and the chart right now for Netflix, there's continuation in buying. Any buying here, it was met with increase in volume here. The only selling that you did get here was on the 25th of November, and you came down here, but ultimately are trying to close back above to test the previous all-time high, which was around 908 on the dot. So what can we expect here? That's the next level I'd be looking at if there's more continuation. I want to quickly jump over here to the monthly, which is very intriguing here. So you do have this black swan pattern on the monthly, which was generated back here all the way back in November of 2022. And this right here was a crazy, which we would like to call here a scalper's dream, because at the completion of the pattern, all you see Netflix doing is retrace back, and you're almost in a parabolic curve here. So the next level here that Netflix is calling here on the monthly target is PT3 at 1033.65. For the month of November, you did close 17.3% bullish. So the HSI did hold support above the midline, and if it goes to that overbought zone in the HSI, that could be towards 1K plus. So it's very bullish here on Netflix to see if it does come up to test that target there. You're definitely finding support above the HSI retest line on the monthly here, which is around 688. On the weekly, you do have a hanging man here, which by definition it is a reversal candle, saying that maybe the top is incoming, but obviously we have to wait, give it another week for confirmation, because the volume is low, and that could be because of the short week. So in my opinion, no reversal yet, maybe more consolidating, and then maybe if the data is bullish and you do have a bullish close into the end of the month, you see an attempt, at least Netflix, to get towards that 1K. So you did go as high as 908, so it's kind of almost pretty close to 1K. So it can get very bullish for Netflix here towards the end of the year if there is more continuation to the upside. Targets to the downside here, the next level I'd be looking at would be to lose a 13 EMA. The next level would be at 861. Below that, then you have the 21 EMA. As you can see on the daily, it's just holding above the 13. Anytime it comes to the 13 EMA, it just bounces off of it. So that's the next level I'd be looking at if it comes down to test that 9 EMA, which is around 870. The key level to watch out would be the 13 EMA there around 859 to 860. And you can get maybe a little bit bearish, but right now Netflix is, in my opinion at least, has more strength to the upside. So definitely keep a close eye out on Netflix. Jumping over to NVDA here. So NVIDIA, after earnings, obviously you came down. They did beat earnings, double beat, but ultimately the market reacted a little bit bearish here. And at the completion of the pattern, you have two patterns here. You had a deep crab and a white swan, but at the completion of both patterns at D, you came down here and retraced. For the deep crab, you did a type 1 reaction all the way to target 1 at 133.05. And you did lose PT2 off the white swan. We know that the white swan can give a very bearish. If you lose PT2, you have continuation of PT3 at 121.20, just slightly below the target 2 off of the deep crab. So you did form on Wednesday a doji candle, which was off of high volume. You know that by VPA, volume to price analysis, that when you create an indecision candle, a reversal candle here at the bottom of the trend with high volume compared to the previous candle close, that it could be showing signs of a reversal. So obviously we wanted to see on Friday have similar volume to match Wednesday's volume, but like we said, Friday was a short day, so we'd still probably need another day, Monday, to see if there's more continuation to the upside, because if there is, then maybe it's going for that V reversal. So the next level you'd be looking to the upside if there's more volume coming in would be to break above 138, then PT1 at 143, then you go for the type 2 return to potentially all the way up to hop there. So you got 150, 154, and then 163. The HSI is bouncing just slightly above that extreme oversold condition, so we'll see if that is the case. You are also forming here what looks like an information. There is a bit of resistance here at the 921 EMA and that HSI dot retest line. So until it breaks above around 141, 140 and change, I do think I have around 144. You can look towards test the previous all-time high and then ultimately create a new all-time high at 154. If we go over here to the weekly, you can see that this is a hanging man off of the weekly. So we'll see if this is actually signs of reversal. You can see that 132 here, double bottom. You came down here in late October and then in late November, and you held support. You actually in October you held support and then you created that higher high. So we'll see if that's repetition again. You're looking like you did create that higher high. Maybe right now you are creating that higher low off the weekly. We'll see if there's anywhere. Yep, we can see that you actually came down here for the higher low. So maybe it's on its way for a potential higher high and maybe ultimately a new all-time high. So definitely keep a close eye out on NVIDIA. Jumping over to Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin currently has this bearish crap pattern. Obviously, a few weeks ago we did have an attempt towards 100k. It fell short by around 400 plus. So what can we expect here harmonically? You are hovering just above hop around 96.1k. Volume is starting to diminish here, so maybe you're looking to consolidate, maybe waiting for data to be bullish. Ultimately, we're going to find out this week if there's more continuation here. But levels I'd be watching out here for Bitcoin, as you can see that the HSI is approaching that midline, so it's going to be very important to see if it crosses that midline. If it does cross it off of high volume here, then maybe the next level to be looking at would be the previous all-time high at 99.5k. If you do lose hop here, the next level I'd be looking at would be a retest of the HSI dot retest line around 90k, just slightly where the terminal bar is at. My opinion, that terminal bar is going to be the important key. If you do come down here, if you lose that level, then you might be on its way to the type 1 reaction at 76.35k T1 there. So definitely keep a close eye out there. If we go over to the weekly, you can see that last week you did have this long-legged hanging man, and obviously we started a new week for Bitcoin. So we're going to see if this is actually going to retrace here to the downside. Obviously no signs yet, but the HSI, RSI, and the amplified RSI are all completely overbought. No HSI arrow to the downside yet, so we'll see if there's more continuation, because right now the monthly HSI says more room to the upside before the overbought conditions. Yes, the RSI is a bit overbought on the monthly, but it does not mean you cannot continue pushing higher towards 100k plus. So that's the levels I have, guys, for Bitcoin. Just a retest of 99.5k, and then above that, and you have the psychological 100k, and then you have price discovery. So there's more targets to the downside I can give you guys, which, like I said, is 96.1k, and then you have that terminal bar. So anywhere between 90k and 89k to the downside. If it gets down there, you can get a little bit bearish on Bitcoin. But other than that, right now it looks like it's just consolidating right now. We're going to wait to see what this week brings out for crypto. So definitely keep a close eye out on Bitcoin. So that's it from me, guys. I will be streaming same time as always. So if you're interested in catching me stream live on Twitch, link to the description box below. I do stream from Monday to Friday from market open to market close. So having said that, guys, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys on Monday. Take care, everybody, and peace.